Right. So today we're gonna dive into
Okay.
The Duchess and the Jeweler.
I love this story.
Right. It's by Virginia Woolf.
Yeah.
And, you probably know her from all the big ones.
Of course. Yeah, Mrs. Dalloway.
Mrs. Dalloway, To the Lighthouse, all that. She's a huge figure in modernist literature.
Huge.
And today we're going deep on one of her shorter works, but it's one that pops up on like pretty much every BA syllabus I've ever seen.
All the time.
So
It's a good one.
it is a good one, and we're going to break it down in a way that I think is going to be super helpful for you if you are taking one of those courses, or if you're just,
Just want to read it.
someone who likes to read and wants to kind of unpack some of this.
Totally. Yeah, The Duchess and the Jeweler is one of those stories that's deceptively simple, right? Like, on the surface, it seems pretty straightforward, but then the more you dig into it, the more you realize there are all these layers, all these layers of meaning and symbolism and...
Yeah, so it's like, those Russian nesting dolls?
Yes.
That's kind of what this feels like.
That's a great analogy.
Open it up and there's another one and there's another one.
Exactly, and Woolf is a master at that.
So we're going to try to unpack some of those
Let's do it.
layers today. We're going to look at the characters, we're going to look at
The themes.
the symbolism, all that good stuff. And just to set the stage, for anyone who might not have read it recently, can you give us kind of a quick rundown?
Yeah, so basically the story is about this guy named Oliver Bacon. He's a jeweler.
Okay.
And he's super wealthy and successful, but he comes from...
Humble beginnings.
Yeah, very humble beginnings. So he's kind of like this self-made man, right?
Okay, I like it.
And one day, this duchess comes into his shop.
Ooh, a duchess.
A real duchess, yeah.
Fancy.
And she needs money, and she's selling these pearls.
Pearls, okay.
But here's the twist. Oliver knows they're fake.
He knows they're fake.
Yeah.
And he buys them anyway.
What? Why would he do that?
Right. That's the big question, and that's where things start to get really interesting.
Okay, I am intrigued.
Because it's not about the pearls themselves, it's about what they represent.
Okay.
And for Oliver, it's all about status.
Status.
He wants to be seen as part of this elite world.
I see.
The world that the Duchess represents.
Yeah.
Even if it's all based on a lie.
That is so interesting. So to understand this guy, this Oliver Bacon, we need to kind of dive into the head of Virginia Woolf a little bit, right?
Okay.
Because she's the one who created him.
Absolutely. So Woolf was this, super innovative writer. She was a pioneer of modernism, and she's known for this style called stream of consciousness.
Okay, and remind me, what is that exactly?
Basically, it's like she lets you into the minds of her characters. You get to hear their thoughts, their feelings all jumbled up, just like in real life.
Because it's not like your typical, he said, she said kind of.
No, it's way more internal, way more psychological.
And it's perfect for a story like this because it helps us understand Oliver's motivations. Like, why would this guy, who's built this whole empire on his own, why would he fall for this?
Right.
And, I think part of it is that he's still so insecure about his background.
Because he came from nothing.
Exactly. He's always trying to prove himself, to fit in with this upper class world.
So the Duchess, in a way, represents
the pinnacle of that world.
Yeah, she's the top of the social ladder.
Exactly. And he's so desperate to be accepted by her, by that whole class, that he's willing to ignore the fact that...
the pearls aren't even real.
Exactly. I mean, it's almost tragic, right?
It is kind of sad, yeah.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about, how much of that is still true today.
Oh, absolutely. We may not have duchesses running around.
Right.
But there's still this obsession with status and who's in and who's out.
Yeah, and who has the money and who has the power.
Totally. And Woolf was really interested in that, in how power dynamics play out in society.
And, speaking of power, it's interesting because at first glance, you might think the Duchess is the one with all the power, right?
Oh, totally.
She's the one with the title, the lineage, the connections.
Right. She comes from this long line of, supposedly important people.
But she's also desperate.
Oh, yeah, super desperate. She needs Oliver's money.
Right.
And that desperation gives him a certain kind of power over her.
Interesting. So, the power dynamic kind of shifts throughout the story.
It does. And I think Woolf is trying to show how power isn't always so straightforward, it can be subtle. Yeah. And it can shift depending on the situation, on who needs what from whom.
And I think it's interesting, too, because Woolf herself came from an upper class family.
She did.
But she was also very critical of that class system.
Oh, yeah, she could see right through it. She understood the privileges that came with her background, but she also saw how restrictive and unfair it was.
And the Duchess and the Jeweler is like a perfect example.
It is, yeah. Like you see how class defines not just your social circle, but also your opportunities, even your sense of self.
Right. And how sometimes it can trap you, like it traps Oliver in this cycle of trying to prove himself.
Exactly. He's so focused on being accepted by this upper class world that he loses sight of what really matters.
And then there's the whole theme of appearance versus reality.
Oh, yes. That's huge in this story.
Those pearls, they're like this giant metaphor.
They are. They represent beauty and wealth and status, but underneath, it's all fake.
Like the Duchess herself.
Right. Like she's putting on this facade of aristocratic elegance, but underneath, she's struggling financially. She's desperate.
And just like those pearls are fake, her whole image is kind of fake too.
It is, and Oliver's buying into it, both literally and figuratively.
Wow. Makes you wonder, did Woolf intend for those pearls to symbolize something specific?
Well, that's the great thing about her writing, right? She leaves a lot open to interpretation. She gives you these symbols, like the pearls, and lets you kind of figure out what they mean for yourself.
She makes you think. I love that. And, speaking of thinking, what about those flashbacks to Oliver's childhood?
Oh, yeah, those are so important.
Like, why are they there? What are they trying to tell us?
I think they're key to understanding Oliver's character, like where all this yearning for status and wealth comes from.
So they're not just random memories?
No, they're very deliberate. They show us the roots of his insecurities.
Like maybe he was poor as a child?
Yeah. Or maybe he felt inferior to other kids who came from wealthier families.
So this whole story, it's not just about buying some pearls. It's about...
Yeah, it's about his whole life, his whole psychology.
His whole struggle with class and identity.
Exactly. And I think that's why this story continues to resonate with people, even though it was written over 100 years ago.
It's timeless.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder, if Woolf were writing this story today...
Yeah.
In our world of social media and influencers and all that...
Oh, that's interesting.
Would it be different? Would Oliver be chasing after likes instead of pearls?
Maybe. Or maybe it would be the same story, just with a different setting.
Because the desire for status, that's never going to go away.
That's human nature, right?
Yeah, so maybe we're all just chasing after our own version of fake pearls.
Maybe we are.
Something to think about, right?
Definitely. And that's what I love about Woolf's writing. It stays with you. It makes you think.
It's food for thought, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave it for today.
Yeah.
We've unpacked a lot.
We have.
And hopefully this has given everyone some good insights into this
Definitely.
amazing, but also deceptively simple
Absolutely.
story by Virginia Woolf. So until next time, keep those brain gears turning.
And keep reading.
And we'll see you on the next deep dive.
See ya.